So let me see, that would be page 124. Okay, let's just, can you, Navin, show the Dhamma? Okay, let's just see. So we just come to page 124, the last, actually, the section of this treatise or this text, okay? So, and then there's one of the category called the category of the space. I think that's not, normally we don't have much question because it's one of the, anyway, it's also in Sarvastivada also understand that as a kind of what we call this belong to the informal no. So Asamskruta Dhamma means Uwaifa. It's a kind of you could not say that that is belong to a kind of formation Dhamma because it doesn't have changing. It doesn't have a changing and a ceasing. It's just a space. And but we must understand also this is anyway. And then in Sarvastivada the tradition, so there are three. When you say there are an information dhamma, so or information dhamma, there are three, right? One is called the space, and the other is what we are going to talk later. The what we call the cessation through deliberation, and then the cessation independent of deliberation. Okay, there are three. All right. Let's just roughly go through it first. What are these? The category of space. Okay. Shall we just read that first on the line 6 and line 6.1 to line 6.2, 124 page. Okay. Page 124. Okay. Let's read through it together. So space has a characteristic of accommodating rest.
As it is by the dominant force of this that they're capable of being produced. And it is the nature of space to be accommodative. If it were non-existent, there ought to be the production of resistant things, since there will be nothing to accommodate them.
Thus, the second 6.1. Thus,
the Bhagavad has said, "O Brahmana, wind is supported by space." The Brahmana asked, "By what is space supported?" The Buddha further told him, "Your question is unreasonable. Space is immaterial, invisible, and non-resistant. What can be its support? Nevertheless, space can be known on account of its distance of light."
And 6.2, therefore,
we know exists the unconditioned space. If the substance were non-existent, on what can wind be supported? What is the basis for the assertion that is immaterial, etc.? What is it that it's discerned by reason of light? The discernment of a tortoise hair cannot be account of inference.
okay.
Tortoises have no hair.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I say cannot be accounted for inference. Anyway, I think the first paragraph just says the characteristic of space is means you must understand it's kind of a kind of like a space accommodating the resistant thing. In other words, means when you say the resistant in what is called Pratibhaga means like this is a space, so it's accommodating this the space here, right? If the wall going to if you're going to push the wall further and then you have a small space. But this kind of definition, I need to say that in Theravada or Pali tradition would not agree. Okay, But this is definitely is a Sarvastivada way of understanding. And anyway, first understand that it has a characteristic of accommodating resistant thing. The Theravada would not agree the Pali is because the word accommodating. Okay? Because to the Pali tradition, space arises because of when the material, given a gap of the material, that is called a space.
Say that again on Pali.
It's like basically mean if the space been understood as just something is how to say unobstructed, that is called a space. Yeah. Anyway, that's a slight difference. I won't say there's a huge difference, but then you can. Let me finish this for then. I just want to say that sometimes, especially when you say the word accommodating, okay. So because, okay, right. In Theravada, understand the space mean when there's any object is there, when the space been defined because of existence of the object. Okay. Get it now?
That one I understand.
Yeah. But here when you say accommodating, it means that the space kind of imply the space might produce something. No. I know that I don't mean this. They are like that, but that's why the Theravada. Usually when the argument comes, debate comes, it's a very subtle thing. It's not necessarily. That's why the defense sometimes could be out of language problem because of definition problem. Okay, but Theravada is very clear. That's the reason why sometimes in Theravada, it's believed that the Theravada actually have a very thorough thought about what the problem of the other language. That's why they don't want to use some other language, it cuts away, and they just want to say what the space means. It's the space are understood always when the object it's when how to say it's a kind of it's opposed to the object. That's just a space. Okay. And you do have a lot of people writing a thesis about the concept because in Indian the space sometimes can produce things. For example, when the universe, how the universe start, is because it's a space start first, and then when they have a thought, when the thought comes, and then you have the wind. When the wind, that means you could say the breath. When they have a breath, and then the space almost like from the empty space, or something arises from the empty space. That implies such a thought. This is maybe in Sarvastivada might have a little close to that kind of concept. As I say, Theravada are very aware of this. They don't think the space is something that can produce anything, but space just anyway, it's just opposed to the objects means space. That's it. Okay.
It's like quantum physics.
So is space a nama or a rupa?
I think to Theravada, the space is the nama, and the rupa is a kind of form. But here, to this Sarvastivada, the space is it's the suddenly I forgot unconditional dhamma, unconditionings, unconditional elements, like what we're going to talk the next two. Okay. So anyway, that's the reason why there's a defense you could see here. Basically, he say as it is by the dominant adipati, because of Zhen Shan, because of the before we learned, there's a kind of condition called the adipati conditions, Zhen Shan Yuan. So because of they were if there's a given any chance, so that's why I say as it is by the dominant force of this that they are capable of obtaining produced, you see, of being produced. In other words, mean if anything will give the chance there, then they will be produced. And as it is the nature of space to be accommodated, because the space has a nature of space to be accommodated. As I said, this is actually would disagree from the Pali tradition. Okay. As I say, Pali don't want to think that they will produce anything, whatever. No, space is just space. Space is just opposite to the object. That's it. So, okay. If it were not existent, there ought not to be the production of the resistant thing, since there will be nothing to accommodate them. Get it now? It takes this kind of space almost like is accommodating the object. Okay? But in Theravada, it's the space there because the object is there. But, all right.
Sounds like quantum physicists talk.
I'm sorry, I don't know physics very well about that. I mean, maybe I'm sure that the people who learn advanced physics, they can talk something about this. But you have to understand in theology it's different.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
In that way, that kind of understanding is similar.
Yeah, but you have to understand in theology it's different way I understand, because in theology, to Theravada, as I said, they took it as an object, as a material. But this material is just opposed to the object. So it's a kind of material which is opposed to the object. And it looks like some even accuse, actually when they write this sentence, the definition here, you could sense that they defend their position already, right? They say that. They defend their position in kind of like the aware some other Buddhist school would not agree what the definition is about too.
So akasa, it said means kasa and akasa is space and non-space? Is that?
No, akasa is a mean space.
Space? Okay.
The word is, no, there's nothing to do with problem,
Okay.
no. Akasa is
So
a space.
negation, right? Yeah, I thought that's pretty smart.
No.
Well, we're thinking in Pali language.
No. If you think in Pali language, negation is not a long vowel, it's a short vowel.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not a long vowel. Yeah.
Okay. You learned something.
Now, anyway, so 6.1, so further definition about the space, and then that's why in order to defend the position, it said the Bhagava, I mean the Buddha, once has said, "Oh, Brahma, when is supported by those space," and the Brahma asked, "But what is the space supported?" Of course, and then this is also defend another thing. One is that actually the space do have its function basically, but you cannot ask what support the space. So that's why he say, since the space is immaterial, you see, this is a different definition from a Pali tradition, and is invincible, cannot see, and it's non-resistant. Is also, as I just say, the definition of immaterial, the definition of invincible and apratika, I think is the same as a Theravada. Okay, it's a Pali tradition, but space is immaterial. I guess it's also, I don't know how to say. I don't know. I have to check it. So, but it should be. It definitely is immaterial, but the problem here in the material depends on what you mean by that also. Okay. Anyway, so here the definition of space in material is invincible and non-resistant.
Got all the R's.
Okay. Let's say for the mind is also immaterial. Okay. The mind is also immaterial. The mind is also invincible. But the mind is also it's non-resistant. Okay. You get it now? What I mean? Mind. I'm talking about citta. The mind is the same thing. Mind, you cannot see the mind. You may feel it. It's not like the object you can see. So the mind is also immaterial. Mind is also non-resistant. Okay. So that's why the mind can vast and big. Okay. It's not a material. They have a resistant. The word resistant, here, 障碍. Is it called 障碍 in Chinese? Yeah, 障物. But anyway, resistant here, like this material, this is a resistant. They have a kind of resist, or kind of, that's called a material. Okay, but the mind don't have resistance. But the space also have the same function. Okay. All right.
The last sentence is very interesting.
And therefore, we know that there really exists the unconditioned space. So in other words, this is Sarvastivada understands. So therefore, we know that they really, really have the nature there, have the self-nature there of this core space. Okay? So you know that the Sarvastivada want to talk that there's something always kind of like permanent there. The nature is kind of there. So that's what I mean. There's really exists. Dravasat is always really there's a kind of material there. No, sorry, not material, wrong. There's a kind of immaterial there. Okay, like a mind is a kind of immaterial there. So and
Can I
the
just ask a question? Sorry, going back to the last sentence here. Nevertheless, space can be known to exist on account of existence of light. So,
no, I haven't come to that point yet.
oh,
I think
I
I
thought
just
you skipped to 6.2.
no. I'm talking 6.2 now.
But you
Right.
took that.
I said, therefore, we know that they really exist. They exist mean I'm talking about mean the self-nature. There's a self-nature. They call it the unconditioned space. Okay. If this substance were not existent, on what can wind be supported? Basically, they want to argue they must have this kind of nature there of so-called the space. If there's no such a thing called the so-called space as there's a kind of cap, you could say there's a driver such, mean there's a kind of the substance there, then how can the wind be supported? Okay. So actually this is more like a logic now, and then it say, what is the basis for the assertion that it is immaterial, etc., mean unseen, or apratika is what I mean. What is it in English? Is non-resistance. Yeah. So what is that? What is it that is discerned by the reason of light? And then the discernment of the such absolute. I'm going to say that later. So basically mean, but you say that they're unseen, but then how? But how? Basically, you said that it's unseen. So how do you know that there's a space? And then the answer would be because there's a light, So because of light, so that we know that there is the space. And then here the last one say the discernment of such absolute non-existent entity totals here and cannot be on account of inference. Okay. Let me have to think about why he want to mention this word. But we know that usually it's a very famous in China, in Buddhism. When you say that the turtle got a hair, is a wrong idea. Okay, it's a wrong idea. So, and other words mean the turtle got. I see. I guess he did want to say that if the people. I think it's a disapprove with that. It disapprove that. My understanding is to disapprove the idea that you know the space because there's a light. Because based on the light, there's the space. Am I right? It disapprove.
Yeah.
Or it disapprove it.
It seems to me what they're trying to say here is that certain things can only be discerned by seeing. Like and not just by thinking. And you can't really think if a tortoise has hair or not. You have to look at it. And you can't look at something unless there's light.
Okay. It's okay. Good. So in other words, mean that
You have to see it. And when you see it, you need light and space. You can't just guess by thinking.
Yeah, because inference and anuman, I mean, you're by reasoning, kind of, yeah.
So when you say space and kind of light, it's kind of synonymous. Without light, the space, we couldn't see it, but it's, without light, then the space would exist. Without, regardless of light
How
or no
can you
light.
see the
Can be
space?
none. This word is
Yeah.
important.
But,
Doesn't
Sort of
mean
like
doesn't
light
exist.
proves there's
but then,
space.
right, light proves the space, but then if there were no light, then it's still space does exist.
Yeah, that is true.
No, I mean, when you say exist to the Sarvastivada,
Yeah.
what do you mean by the exist? You have to understand the word that say exist here. That's why they have what you call the dravasat. Means the space does have his own, should have this its own, how to say, own nature there. So, okay. Now we are not. This is not just the Madhyamika's kind of argument that when I see the space, or when I know the space, it means the space there. When I don't know the space, you could argue that there's no space. It's a different scenario we are talking. It's just talking about the space itself. They have a kind of nature. Okay. All right.
Does that mean the space is conditional?
Unconditioned.
No, to Sarvastivada is unconditioned.
Unconditioned.
Now, I think that today, let's just go to the next one because the next one is it's one of the very important subjects actually in Sarvastivada school. Okay. Another unconditioned Dharma is called the Nirodha, or in other words, it means the cessation. Okay. And it's a synonymous to Nibbana, Nirvana. Okay. It's a synonymous to Nirvana. And in Sarvastivada school, when you say Nirvana, there are two types of Nirvana. So be understand as a kind of the element. Okay. So one is called the Nirvana, mean the cessation through the deliberation, and one is not deliberation. We'll translate as well. It's the independent of deliberation. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Can you say that space is unconditioned because there's nothing to arise and pass away, as opposed to physical stuff which has the nature to decay? But space has nothing to arise or pass away, so maybe that's why it's...
Yeah. Actually, that's what I understand, because when you say that the space is unconditioned Dhamma, because it's not like conditioned Dhamma, say that, because there's no passing, there's no ceasing and passing of the Dhamma. So you could say the space is unborn. You could say that. It's kind of like this. But I think the way I'm talking more like a Pali already, it's just unborn. But anyway, but here I understand it's unconditional because it would not, it has nothing, you could not apply this, what we call the samyefa, it means arising and ceasing to the concept of the space.
It's
and
not independently arisen.
No, everything is dependent on a reason, right?
Even space?
No, I mean, let's say, depends on how the objects, how the objects, how big the space is, still is dependent on reason, but not the space itself.
Right.
Right. Yeah, the space itself is not dependent on reason, no. You only might be just get to know the space because of the light. But the space itself is almost like, it kind of implies that eternally is there. Okay. But this is way which is actually what the Sarvasti, the Pali tradition would not like it. Yeah. Okay. I think I would say that Pali tradition make it more simple in that way. So less problematic. People might raise a lot of questions. So, and it doesn't have any function of Nibbana too, but it just the space, because they have no ceasing and arising of the Dhamma for the space itself. So you cannot say it's a formation. It should be an unformation. Okay. All right. Now let's look at this. We have to look at the other two Dhamma. Then will be end of the whole subject, the whole book now. What we call is the cessation to the deliberation. Okay. So, and there's another one true, what we call dependent from deliberation. Okay. So there's a kind of cessation, the mere, through the deliberation, and there's a kind of dependent from deliberation. When you say that it's a true deliberation in a general idea, it means that you kind of like, you need effort, you do something, and then something will not arise. Okay. And then when you say that it's dependent from the deliberation, 就是in Chinese called 非则灭法. Okay. So, and then that means actually when something is not given the chance there, so it's a cessation itself is there already. Get it now?
Say that again. When?
So let's say we're going to. I think we just see the example. Then let's say the second one is very easy to understand. Actually, the confused one and more difficult is the cessation through deliberation. 则灭法. That's a difficult one. But the easy one is that so-called independent one deliberation generally means like, so when my eyes are seeing the object, I arise the craving, right? I love the object, I have a craving to the object, say the pictures. But that time, that moment, my ear didn't hear anything. My body didn't feel any sensation. So, right? So that the moment when my body don't feel anything, my ears didn't hear anything, that is the moment you could say that is the cessation of dependent of dependent, independent from deliberation. Mean that kind of cessation mean no any problem, good, like no defilements will not arise. Get it now? Hello? Are you sure you get it? Forget the two different is cessation through deliberation and not deliberation. Or independent but deliberation means, independent from deliberation means that when they avoid the chance, so that itself is a cessation. Okay? Because there's no chance for thing arises. Okay. Okay, let's just go at the 7 first. Let's just read through it first, and then we might have more Robert to talk, discuss. Okay. So, shall we read together first? Okay. The absolute annihilation
of all unsatisfactoriness
is named
cessation through deliberation.
what is unsatisfactory.
Unsatisfactoriness, birth and death. Thus the Bhagavan has said, the very production of becoming is said to be unsatisfactoriness. The becomings are synonymous with birth and death. When no becoming is produced, it is said to be the absolute annihilation of unsatisfactoriness.
Okay. And then next one, 7.1.
The cessation through deliberation is that which causes the non-production of unsatisfactoriness. Like a dike
Holding back the water or a screen blocking the wind. By deliberation is meant the deliberating.
It is a special kind of wholesome understanding. The cessation through deliberation is the same name given to the cessation acquired through deliberation of this with regard to the Four Noble Truths.
7.2, read that? Yeah.
There are innumerable entities accordingly as the amount of abandonables which is innumerable. If there were only
One, it would become useless to cultivate the path that are to follow once one has acquired. The cessation of the first defilement
as he would have at the same time realized the cessation of all the other classes of defilement.
If one maintains that one first realized partially and not completely, it should follow that one cessation consists of several parts.
An
An entity consisting of several parts is illogical. It is proper to say that there are many cessations through deliberation, as there are dogmas without those things since the course with logic.
7.3, yeah, read that, okay?
In accordance with the different paths are established as 89. In accordance with the abandonment knowledge, they are established as 9. In accordance with the 5 different classes, they are established as 5. In accordance with different fruits, they are said to be 4. In accordance with the 3 different elements of abandonment, detachment, and cessation, they established as 3. In accordance with the abandonment of unsatisfactoriness and the origin of unsatisfactoriness, and also accordingly as nirvana, with or without remainder, they are established as 2. From the point of view of abandonment of birth and death collectively, it is established as 1.
Okay, the last one? No, last two one, 7.4.
The cessation through deliberation has many symptoms, such as exhaustion, detachment,
Cessation, etc. Thus, it is
said in the
Manushyaka Sutra.
O bhikkhus, the four immaterial aggregates, the eyes and the visibles, etc.,
Taken collectively are called human beings. Here is the names Sattva, Manuja, Nara, Manava.
Here is the assertion of
I see the visibles, etc. with my eyes, etc. Is the generation of various conventional manner of speech. This venerable has such a name, he belongs to such a caste, such a lineage, etc. These all bhikkhus are mere ideation, mere manners of speech. All these dhammas are impermanent, conditioned, and dependent arising. This being so, is unsatisfactoriness at the time of being produced, and in staying. With regard to all this unsatisfactoriness, the complete abandonment, casting aside, expurgation, exhaustion, detachment, cessation, appeasement, disappearance, the non-linking up with other, that is known as the extremely tranquil, excellent, namely the casting aside of all substance, exhaustion and craving, detachment, cessation, nirvana. Last one, 7.5. Casting aside all substance.
There is a complete relinquishment of the satisfactoriness of the five aggregates
of grasping. Absorption
of craving means that
in this cessation, all craving,
presently exhausted.
it is detachment.
Because once acquired cessation, one is completely free from the defiled dhammas.
It is cessation because when one has obtained this cessation, all unsatisfactoriness ceases. It is nirvana because when one has realized this cessation, the fire of all calamities is extinguished. Okay. Now, when we say this, the cessation definitely means the cease of the dukkha, the suffering. Okay, we understand that already, and that's why it's also in the text called that. What does it mean? What does it mean? When no becoming is produced, where I'm talking the number 7, the paragraph number 7, it is said to be the absolute annihilation or unsatisfactoriness, right? In other words, when you say 灭苦即涅槃 in Chinese, let's say if you cease of the suffering, it means that is the nirvana, okay? But you have to understand the nirvana in Sarvastivada, understand the nirvana there's a particular term here that called the Pratisamkhya Nirodha, means the cessation through the deliberation. Then you also have another kind of nirvana called the cessation through dependent from deliberation, okay? So let's, before moving on the dependent from deliberation, just understand what the cessation through the deliberation means here. And it said that it's almost like, that's why the simile, I'm not sure I would like the simile, but anyway, that's how they put it here. The simile say that just like there's a dike, you can stop the water coming in. So, in other words, there's a kind of nature, there's a kind of drawback, a kind of the body of the Dhamma called the cessation of deliberation. And that kind of Dhamma called the cessation of called deliberation, through the deliberation, that will stop anything that the suffering comes in. Okay. All right. But then actually there's a lot of discussion in Mahavipassa. Sometimes what does it mean by that? But you could just generally means because they will not allow us a condition. There's any condition given the suffering comes in. So the condition of the craving, the condition of the conditions through this craving the condition, through this anger the condition, through, for example, the ignorance. Okay, so that's why then that kind of nature of the nirvana, or that kind of nature of nirvana is called the cessation through deliberation. Okay, hello. So far, understanding that, I mean, that's a very abstract concept there. Okay, but it is called Pratisamkhya Nirodha, or that's why it's called the cessation to deliberation, because it's also to deliberate. Okay, why it's called? Because it's the deliberating. It's a Pratisamkhya. It basically means it is because you still through this deliberating. It's a kind of like you're choosing it. You know, you choose that. You don't choose the other thing, but you choose this thing. So it is so, and that's why you have to understand this kind of the Dhamma, which is you choose to be or deliberating. You're 刻意地去做它的. So you're deliberating. That's why it's called cessation to the deliberation. And you must understand the quality of it is that it's a kind of wholesome. Okay, and it's a kind of wholesome. How to say? It's actually the word. I think here they translate as it's a special kind of wholesome understanding. Okay, it's a kind of special. It's a special kind of the wholesome wisdom. Or you may understand. Okay, the word actually in Sanskrit means kusala prajna. It means a very unique kind of the wisdom. Okay. Hello.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a kind of unique wisdom. It's called the deliberating. Okay, cessation. Why it's called deliberating? Because you deliberately do it. Okay, but this kind of thing is a special kind of wisdom. Okay, and the cessation to the deliberation is a name given to the cessation acquired through the repeated deliberation of this. Anyway, why this is the it is called. I think did they mention here? No, but basically means. But when you keep on deliberately doing that with regard to the Four Noble Truths, so and then the cessation will given rise. That's why it's called the cessation. Okay. All right. The term is that when you say cessation or deliberating, the word deliberating, 简则, it means because you deliberately do it, right? And then this kind of deliberate doing action, or maybe deliberating, this action is going on, been understand has the nature kind of what we call a special kind of wisdom. Okay. And then you could say if there's a function, if you want to talk about the function, would be like a dike, stop the water coming. You know, because any other words mean there's no way to give other bad thing comes arise. And when this wisdom is there, nothing can be produced. But then why we call it as a cessation also is because when constantly doing, so and the object would be what? When you're doing, it's on the Four Noble Truth, and then basically mean I think I want to say this. The ceased then thing will be you can get the ceased. Okay, you will get this kind of cessation. So through the Four Noble Truth. So and by repeating doing it, that's why it's called a cessation. Okay. Everybody looks like
So can you compare that to that's deliberate? You deliberately do this, and then the other one you talk about.
You don't have to deliberately do that. When the given chance is a void, that is there.
So the other one, the independent deliberation, cessation independent deliberation, you avoid it?
No, avoid. When the chance is given.
Deliberately you avoid something.
No. Don't jump in there first. Shall we just keep on here then we'll be back there. When you know this, then you know there's only difference is that one is the condition is not given. Okay. Anyway, the 7.2 generally. Let me look at this first. But actually, this 7.2 is a big confusion. Okay. Generally, it means that when Skandila, when he writes this, of course he must aware the Mahavibhasa's tradition, and maybe even during his time, there's a lot of different debate, right? Here, I just want to tell that there are people thinking that this is actually the entity of it just only one. In other words, if I have attained the cessation or deliberation, that means I attend all the cessation or deliberation. Okay, this is okay. That's the reason why some people argue that, when somebody attend the first fruit, okay, it means attend Arahant. Why? Some people argue that. Why? Because when you cut off the defilements, you cut off the ignorance. You cut off your permanent ignorance. Okay, but of course this is not a Buddhist idea. This is a wrong view. But there are people who claim that too. When I attain enlightenment, for example, I meditate and all. I'm going to say this later. The process. When there's a process going on, and then I attend the first time, then I attend because to the Four Noble Truth, and I have from the first to truth for the suffering, I realize that's a suffering, right? And then I see the cause of suffering, and I really understand the cause of suffering. Then I cut off the cause of the suffering. Then I attend the cessation, right? Mm-hmm. When I attend the cessations, then I know the path, and I attend the path also, right? When I cut off the cessation, I attend the path. And that time, you cut off, we learned before, you cut off this, you cut off this, the perceiving of the body as there's I, right, in my body and in my mind, right? And you cut off this, what you think should be, that's the rule, and that's the rule. But you fix the rule. That has to be this way, that has to be, that's wrong way, wrong rule. Perceiving a wrong rule. And you cut off the idea of that, knowing that, actually, because I have attachment, I have a wrong idea, or maybe I have a right idea, but I always hold with my idea to judge to people, or to judge to myself, those the paramasa, the view, because you have the view and all this sort of thing. You remember, then you cut off 5 kind of views. Hello? Do you remember that? Even though you don't remember the list, but you know there's something like that, right? So, and then some people claim, when that cut off means at that time you are cut off the ignorance, right? You cut off the ignorance. So that means if you cut off ignorance, you show that I permanently cut off the ignorance. Because I attain the cessation of deliberation. Okay? Get it now? So when I attain the cessation of deliberation, through deliberation, permanently I have attained the cessation of deliberation. This is the argument here for 7.1. Mean there is one body only. But then, or do you think that there's, but if there's a one body, that's what they say. That's what I try to explain. If there's only one body of the cessation of deliberation, then how can you explain people when they first practice and they reach the attainment called this, the 见所断 and 修所断 means you have cut off the defilements through seeing, right? Remember, through I think it's through seeing, darsana, brahana, is vision. True vision. Yeah, thank you. So the cut off the defilements, right? There's a wide vision. And then another one is a wide cultivation. Right, there are 2 types, right? We learned in previously, when you say you cut out the defilement through the vision, 见所断, it means actually you will attain the sotabana, the stream antenna, right? So that time, nobody will argue that this is not the cessation through deliberation. 这一定是折灭法, right? Nobody argue that. In other words, everybody agree that time when the people had cut off all the first 5, those 5 types of views, right? Because they cut off all these defilements, and then basically they attain what we call the vision, right? The path of vision. Remember, 就是见修 They attended the path of vision, And then at that moment, definitely there's a cessation of true deliberation. But if you think that that's a cessation of true deliberation is just only one body, you mean when people at that time attend this thing, then they are eternally, they become like the Sotapanna and Arahant is the same thing. That means the stream and the 出果跟阿罗汉果是一样的 because you have cut off the defilements. You cut off this the what we call this the amoha means the ignorance. You cut off the ignorance, right? But it's not. We know that because even attainment, after people when they have the vision, they attend the part of vision, they still have to be, they still are the shiksha, as shiksha. I mean, they still have to study, learner, right? They still have to practice to be a second, what we call the once returner, non-returner, and then ultimately become arahant. So that's why you cannot say there is only one body of the cessation to deliberation, okay? And you also don't say that, but maybe in other words, I think here more or less like support that. You might just say they have many body or cessation also, but I think indirect. I forgot how we mentioned here. But anyway, there's an argument about whether you should understand as one body or many body. But let me look at it first, because when you read too many, you have to forget which text say what.
They say one body is useless.
But definitely one body is not true, and. Okay, it also say that, but it's also wrong to say that actually there's one body got many parts of it. Okay, that is also is against that. Okay, like the next paragraph 7.3. 7.3 is those are actually is a very short form to give the answer. Then I think that we don't have to read it. Explain it now one by one first. He just want to say sometimes you could say there are 9 types, sometimes you could say there are 5 types, sometimes you can say there are 3 types, sometimes you can say there's 2 types. How do you understand that? Okay, but say that for example when you say there's a 9 types, because you know that when you first time the people when they attend the path of vision, right, they had to cut off 9 kind of the defilements already. So that's why you could say there's a 9 type. You know, you based on the 5 wu bu. Or what here to translate the 5, let me see how to say it. The 5 classes, remember what are these 5 classes?
5 classes.
Hello, remember what are 5 classes refer to? The 5 classes refer to, you know, you have this ku, ji, I mean the 4 noble truth, and then the last one mean and what about the last one? No. Come on, don't just guess. Huh? I don't know whether I have notes here with you. So what are the 5? No. The 4 no Buddha is suffering is there already. What is the last one?
Cultivation.
Yeah. So that's a cultivation. The 5th one. Okay. So that's why you could say there are 5 types. Basically, it's list under the scheme of the Sarvastivada. Let me see whether I have this chart here, and then I will just show you, and then you might have a better idea. Anyone have the chart here? So 98 type of the defilements with the abandonment. Anyone have a chart? Just show the chart. Anyone bring a chart? I didn't bring it. Okay. Remember there's a chart I gave it to you like that, right? And the chart basically, so the chart according to the, I think the first is the, so So in other words, mean the chart told you that a person who first time to abandon these defilements, right? They have to abandon their 10 type of the defilements from the suffering, 7 type from the origin of suffering, and then 7 type from the cease of the suffering, and then the 8 types, the defilement which is that you can be abandonable through this the path, like the 8 types of it. So altogether, 25, 32. Okay, 25? No, 18 to 25, 25 plus 7.
36 is for Satipatthana.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, is it 36?
That's what I have here. All Bhagavis cast away, 36 for Satipatthana. The Arahant is 98.
36.
Hmm.
The desire, Shiva, 36.
No, I think that you don't count the cultivation, really. So it should be 18 to 12 as 14. 18 to 4 plus 14 is how many? 30. Yeah, that's why I remember 32. So you don't count the cultivation. So in other words, means that according to Saravasiva, that a person who entering the stream entering, that for sure, through the 5 classes they have abandoned or they have attained basically the cessation of the cessation of deliberation, because these 32 kind of defilements through these 5 classes are not arises. Okay, get it now. And then that's why you saw. But if you have to follow about the fruit, you know there are 4 kind of fruits for the sainthood, for the noble person. So that's why you say there are 4 kind of cessation through there. When you count them through this, sometimes you say there are 3, because the cessation can be understood as when you are abandon it, duan. Okay, you can be understand as abandon it. You can understand after you are away from it, li, right? And then you can understand as when it's been seized. So all that shaya. So that's why you count it as there's three types of it. Okay. And then sometimes you also can understand as a 2 type. Is one means whether the still the people even actually they attend like the Buddha or Arahant, even they attend the cessation or deliberation, but they still have the body or without the body. Okay. When you say have the body, means that they still have the remainder. Without the body means without the remainder. Okay. Get it? So those are actually, the important nowadays so far, I must understand the cessation being understood. The cessation through deliberation, all these are belong to the cessation through deliberation, the above mentioned one, just what I mentioned. Okay. And then also the 7.4 actually just trying to basically say the deliberation has many synonymous. Now when you say the word like Sanskrit shaya, jin, exhaustion is also, right? When you say the word detachment, viraga, okay, it's also. And then the word cessation, of course, nirodha, is mean that. And then the word cessation has many words there. So anyway, and the below one is just quote from the sutra, which is very popular sutra actually. And just basically the sutra just wanted to say there is a kind of conventional language, and there's one of the not the conventional language. Okay, and then but that we must understand even in the conventional language. So you have the word. Basically, sorry, let me look at it first. There's a kind of a speech, the conventional language you could say, vyavahara matrika, okay? So all these dhamma are impermanence and condition and dependent arising, okay? So, and even there's unsatisfactory. Well, I think importantly, want to say that all these unsatisfactory, when it complete abandon, okay, and casting aside, expurgation, exhaustion, detachment, cessation, appeasement, disappearance, so, and even not linking up to the unsatisfactory. And then they also have a wonderful nature. The wonderful nature is very tranquil, excellent, and those are understand as a cessation. Okay. But then further he want to say, what does it mean by casting away the substrandum? Okay. Because the fully cast away or without remainder, fully cast away of the suffering from the five aggregates. Okay. When you say that you completely expel or exhaust the craving, so because the craving completely being cut off, that's mean by that. Okay. And what do you mean by that's a kind of terming detachment? You know, you're away from something, detachment. Because you have got, you have gained this detachment. So that's why the suffering will completely cease. Okay? And that's why all the suffering completely cease like a fire. That's why it's called the nirvana. Okay? I maybe have to put few words first about this before we go. Oh, okay. Let's just go for it, and then we can have a sum up again. Maybe let's look at what is meant by the cessation of independent of deliberation, and then we have a little break, and then we come back to sum up all the thing. Okay. Number 8. Okay, shall we read it? Number 8 now. Okay. The cessation of dependent or deliberation is a distinct dharma, which absolutely obstructs the production of the future dharma. It is acquired simply by deficiency in the conditions necessary for the production of the Dhamma. Okay, not through deliberation. Okay, for example, when the eyes and the mind are focusing on a particular visible, the object visible, sound, smell, taste, and tangible, all wither away. As a result of acquisition of this cessation, the five sensory consciousness which had this obstructed and remain in the future never to arise again. The deficiency in this condition is also due to the force of cessation. Hence, there definitely exists a rare entity.
Cessation independent of deliberation.
There are
also scriptural supports for existence of these entities.
For example, the
Bhagavad has said,
if at a moment the pleasurable sensation appears, the other two sensations cease. Now, what can this cessation be apart from the cessation dependent of deliberation?
Impermanence or the cessation through deliberation. Again, it is said in the sutra, O bhikkhus, if one attains three natures, one has exhausted hell, the infernal regions, and the animal region. The exhaustion here refers to the cessation independent of deliberation, since at the moment one has now acquired the sensation through deliberation for the retributive dhammas.
Okay, so that's what I said actually, it's like, when the cessation of independent or deliberation, the word deliberation is the same, and then the cessation is the same, but you do have another word there called independent. That's a translation, okay? But in Sanskrit, it just, and you put mean without, right? So in Chinese, 非 遮灭 and 非遮灭. So that when you put the one word there, and so here translates dependent, independent, it means basically mean when there is no any condition to given them, so to arise. So but this kind of situation stay, all right, to stay. So, but they, interestingly, Sarvastivada wanted, so one example is like, when you're using your eyes to see the thing, but your ear, okay, would not arise defilements through the ear, okay? When I'm just closing my ears, and or like in meditation, you close everything. You're only using your mind. You close your eyes, you close your nose, you close your mouth, but you're only using your mind to meditate. But then you might have a kind of a bad thing comes to your mind. But anyway, because you don't use your ears anymore, so the ear would the bad karma or the bad, what we call it, the bad thing would not arise in your ears, right? So that means there's a certain kind of cessation called independent, cessation through the independent deliberation. And especially you also must understand, like if they attend something already, and say that they have cut off or something, cut off the defilements, like cut off the defilements, and then that because that should be served as an entity, okay, the Dhamma, so-called dependent from dependent true dependent deliberation that will stay. That's what he want to basically mean. You almost like permanently would not arise. Okay, some they arise because you give the chance to them, right? But the moment when you're doing this, some cessation is the other side. Okay, because you are not using it. You are not using your ear, for example. But there's still have the function. There's still something going on there. That is the cessation, called independent, called through the dependent deliberation. And also, and he wanted to say that this. So let's say he also argued that, like the Buddha say, when you say I have the sensation of the happiness, the other two sensations is not there. I mean the sensation of the neutral and sensation of the suffering is not there. So that cessation is there, right? But you admit there's a cessation. So, but and then you know that time when you have the happiness appear, so you have the feelings of happiness, you cannot say that happiness is basically, change. Basically, you have to acknowledge there's a happiness there, and then this happiness is not the deliberation of, cessation through the deliberation. Okay. Hello. Because the cessation to the deliberation has to be through the Four Noble Truths, right? Yeah. But then you're observing this happiness. This is not Four Noble Truths, right? This is not Four Noble Truths. But then you are not in the cessation through the deliberation, but you have the cessation through independent. Or do they have a use through? This is the independent from basically from deliberation. 非止灭. Why? Because the other two feelings is not arise. Okay, they ceased there. Okay. Eight. Which one?
8.2.
All right.
And remain in the future, and then never to arise again. So if it remains in the future, then why it also never to arise again?
No, but for example, like, when I look at, let me say, okay, now I change the subject to say, when I hear the teachings, right, I don't look at the beautiful thing. Okay, when I listen to the teachings, I don't look at the beautiful. Okay, let's say very simple. There's a beautiful picture. Oh, the war paid a lot of money, like a gold. Okay, everyone is worth $1,000, say. So. But then because you listen to the something, and then your eye don't see this thing, that moment you only listen. So that's why you have attend the deliberation independent from cessation. And then so that moment, I'm talking about that moment. That moment, this cessation is there, and then it would not give a rise in the future also. Okay, right?
It's conditional. What I understand.
The subject is by sensory consciousness, so remain in the future, never to realize again.
Yeah, that's right. Even that's why when my ear listens something, my eye didn't see the thing. So that's why. That's what I said. There's a kind of so-called cessation. It's permanent in stay. This I'm talking about Sarvastivada. I'm not saying the Theravada school now. So that time actually, because your eye don't see the goal, right? So you have ceased. This is not deliberation. You must understand. This is not the deliberation one. It's independent deliberation one. It's there. But I'm not talking about the next moment you see and then you have a rise, some craving. This is not the topic. It's at the moment when your eye or ear hearing something, then your eyes do not arise the defilements, right?
That's I got that, but I have problem with the word here, never.
Never. No, it's true. I mean, that you're talking about that moment, then you never will not arise. But the next moment, if anything trigger you to look at it, of course, then it arises.
Under this condition.
Yeah.
Right, so maybe it's like you open the computer, right? You have Excel spreadsheet, you have a presentation slide, you have other email, right? You can only focus one. I mean, when you look at the email, the other is there, but there's only one take effect, right? So simultaneously, email is there, presentation slide is there, but it can only one thing is taking effect at that time. But they are simultaneously, they're open, right?
Yeah. That like our sense organs. I mean, like in the sense organ, the six sense organs, according to Buddhism, is always open there, right? So and then, but then the sixth sense is always there. But the one moment is only one. So my eye will create one defilement. The next moment may be my nose. The next moment can be my eyes, my nose, my ears, my what, right? But this is how the Sarvastiva argue. When there's that moment, that very moment when my eyes will produce the defilement or whatever, but the other one, the other senses are not kind of like not functioning, okay? Not functioning, it would not arise any defilements. Yeah.
Sorry, the thing is, these two just looks like conflicting with each other. Like one is remain in the future, and next is never to arise again. So this I have the feeling that these two just don't.
No, but that moment gone already. Of course. That's what they argue. That moment gone already. It didn't mean that eternally you don't arise. It's just one that cessation is there already, and then it gone. So it would not. You cannot say because my ear that okay. If there's a moment, say A moment, B moment, C moment. Okay. When the A moment I'm using my eye, but I don't use my ear, right? Then you go. The second moment is B moment, right? We're talking about A moment. We're not talking about B moment. The B moment can be arise anything. I'm talking about A moment again. When the moment you're using your eyes, your ear have the cessation of that you say you get it. But then when you come to the B moment, it just want to say the A moment you have lost the chance. Maybe you can say that. So the B moment, the so-called A moments, things happen, gone forever. That's what he want to say that. I don't know. I don't know why there should be a question about this.
I have no problem with that concept.
I think
We have the same
maybe what
concept.
this phrase and remains in the future is referring to the Sarvastivada idea that the future is a real existing thing, the potential existing.
It is,
So it is a real thing that the potential is existing, but the point is that the conditions for it to happen in the present moment will never happen, so they won't arise.
Yeah, it won't.
Not in the same way.
Okay, but that's a good point too. I don't I don't know why this is so. Of course, you know, I'm here not we don't want to debate about the language. As I say, the language is always very very arguable, and then that's why sometimes it don't. We just want to try to understand what they're trying to say. The concept is that. I mean, Stephen make a that Sarvastivada good point. I'm saying that this is A and there's a B, if there's a C and there's a D. Okay. So if that A time, I'm using the eyes, okay? And say the next moment I'm using the mind, I'm just give it this way. And the next moment I'm using the ear. And the next moment I'm using the eye. I say, make it more difficult. Body. So he just want to say, the moment when you use the eyes, but let's say the ear, the consciousness of ear consciousness, it will not arise, right? When this is not arise, in other words, you don't hear anything, right? You only see things. You say see yellow, okay. So this moment gone, and the next moment mine, and then that. Let's say that we are here, body. I feel this, and then now with this kind of thing, I'm practicing the meditation on. I know that just body. But this is, of course, is very complicated. You are not practicing this meditation on the body, but you are practicing meditation on the Dhamma. That's what we call financial, you know, the exception. At that time in the Dhamma, actually, you refer back how I have this, how something happened to my mind, what happened. And when you run to read back here, say even when you take it, maybe there's a, so you back this A moment if there's something you can recall. A moment, you only know that you see the eye, see the yellow color. You won't know that my ear hears something. That's what I mean. It doesn't, it permanently doesn't arise. Okay? That it will depend. You know? That's what it, because they believe in, you know, Sarvastivada believe in all times they have this kind of existent body. That's the reason why you could go back to see what happened with the A moment, but you won't be see what happened with the body and other thing. Okay. That's So the same thing, like, you know, when you experience the happy feelings, a prayer, and then the two other feelings will be ceased. You know.
So this, can I just ask?
And then just let me finish this. And then so that's why the sutras say, if somebody here attend the Sotapanna, now we are talking about the people who are much higher advanced in the practice already. It's not just about the I see what or A hear what. So when they attend the Sotapanna, so then the hell, I mean, to be reborn to the hell and all to be ghost and all these things will be completely ceased. But this is ceased actually refer to the independent one. The dependent, independent deliberation one. Okay.
So you could become Sotapanna two ways. One is through cessation dependent deliberation, and the other one is through.
No, one is because I'm practicing it. Okay.
So they have these two categories right now, right? We're talking about
of course.
cessation through deliberation.
And then when you are the Sotapanna already, then I mean this is Sarvastivada idea. So that's saying that when the person who are in the Sotapanna or stream intern already, so this kind of cessation of the to be born in those spaces complete become the cessation of that.
But then the cessation could happen in two ways. One is dependent, deliberate, and one is independent of deliberate cessation.
We said that already. There are two types, yes.
Okay, so that's what it's talking about here.
Yeah.
So you could reach Sotapanna kind of combination of both ways, or either one, or something like that. Is that?
No. That's another thing. That's another question. If you want to reach the Sotapanna, of course, you definitely have to go through this deliberation one.
Deliberation. Okay.
That's, the deliberation one is just sort of the normal Pali way, isn't it?
Yeah, you could just put it this way.
That's
Yeah.
normal, yeah.
The
That's how-
independent one is this kind of
Sarvastivada idea.
more of a kind of radical idea.
No, let me just think that because it's not radical. Now, I think this is actually Theravada also have the same idea. They don't use the term. Listen to me. The Theravada have the same idea. They don't use a term. That's why I say many things is language problem.
Oh, okay.
Now, let me give you an example.
What language do they use?
No, back here. Give you one example. Well, yeah, since you're talking about practice, I'm going to talk that later more, but where's the pen? You see, people, the problem is, people only think that they could see the Dharma which is arised. Right? You could see the Dharma which is not arised. What is that? That is, according to Saravastivada, mean this kind of Dharma. For example, that time, everybody would just say, yesterday I was, let me think, just now we're eating some sushi, right? But can we think that just now I don't eat sushi? I know it's very hard.
Can you say that again?
Oh.
Eat or not eat.
So because our mind were only just seeing that kind of deliberate, like, yes, okay, 1 hour, maybe easier to say this. Back to this example. But this is what we're doing is when you look at the past, okay, you always look at the past that what is there, what is there, what is there, what is there, what is there. But presumably, if you are very good at it already, actually you'll be able to see that when what is not there, okay? But I agree with you, the problem is that when you're talking about, when you know, that's the reason why we're back to the big topic in Buddhism, in the Abhidharmavatara 2. So when you say something is not there, according to Sautrantika, the school thing, something is not there is because you know what is there, and what is absent there, so it's not there. But to Saravastivada, don't think that. You actually able to know when I see the eye, actually, let's say the first time I remember, just now I see yellow color, just now I see yellow color, now I'm in the here. I see yellow color, I'm here now, I see yellow color, I'm here now, I see yellow color, I'm there now, I see yellow color. But let's say you always do that, very good. And then you could see that actually that time, this thing is not functioning. 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 You don't have to always say, I see the eye, my mind, what, this is that. That's what they say, this is you know something is not functioning there. That's what he want to say there. That's you actually disagree by Theravada understanding also, but Theravada don't use a term. Because you use a term, because you imply there's a permanent thing, which people hate it, in Buddhism. That's different. But I always say Saravastivada is very brave. They just say, no. But you can think something not just there, you can think something is not there, right? Can you? I mean, of course, that's more advanced practice. So that means this, when you think something is not there, it's a cessation, it's a ceased. So that's also why the Saravastivada believe that actually basically that's I want to say that's the cease. You know the cease and cease and cease because something is not there. And that itself could make you understand the nirvana also. So, all right, just take a little break first. Okay. Okay, shall we begin the class, or how long we have been taking? Okay. Anyway, I just write something on the board. It's just very simple. It just actually means that even though we have the word, the exhaustion, detachment, and cessation, sometimes it actually is going to imply the same thing. But sometimes the Mahavibhasha or the Saravastivada just try to say that the term being used could be in a different way. Okay, when you say that it's an exhaustion, I mean you exhaust, like for example the craving, right? When you say the detachment, so that means you definitely, it's very clear in English, mean you detach from the craving. So it might be giving you the same idea of cessation of the craving, but it can be, they still have you were using a term, but it implies a certain kind of very subtle different things happening. I mean, it could be just because exhaust, something is not there, or something because you are detached from there, or something the cessation, I mean that itself, that is been ceased, it's not there. So anyway, so that's why they use those terms. Now what I want to give you some other idea is that, there's so many ways of practice, but then in tradition, I mean, at least in the Mahavipassa, trying to explain that, for example, when people practice in order to reach the Four Noble Truth, because we understand already, why we had to reach the Four Noble Truth, understand Four Noble Truth, because only through these Four Noble Truth you can get the cessation. And in other words, you could say only because the object would be only the Four Noble Truth, and so someone can practice the deliberation, I mean the cessation of deliberation, right? The cessation through deliberation. So if you understand that, according to this, the tradition in general, first you start to understand when you practice, you have to use your 18 elements. Your eyes, the object, and then your eye consciousness, okay? And then your ear, your object of your ears, that means the sound, and then your ear consciousness. And the mind, the object of the mind would be whatever you think about is the object of the mind, and then you have the mind consciousness, right? So all this is very subtle. But then usually in tradition, you begin with only observing the material first, because they are much more rougher than the mind, right? So you're only observing the eyes, that you see the object, and then you have the eye consciousness, the ear hearing the object, you have this ear consciousness, but don't have to know about the consciousness first. You just have to know the object, the material part. So when the people are comprehending the material part, like my eye, I mean, of course, this is all happening at once, right? But let's say my eye see a thing and it happen at once, but you don't have to know my eye consciousness first, you just have to know I see thing, right? That I see thing is object. So, and my eye as a seer, is an object and as a material like that. So, and then only when you are very good at the material, and then you just start to observe your consciousness. In other words, mean you have the feelings. For example, my eye see the thing, and then I do know I like it, or it agreeable to me or disagreeable to me, or neutral feelings, right? So this is all what we learn all in the formation teachings, formation conditioning Dhamma, remember? All the formational. And then the same thing apply to the mind. The mind, I think about what I see, actually, or the mind thinking something, and I agree it or I disagree it or neutral feelings, the same thing, right? So that's why only in consciousness you have disagreeable or disagreeable, or what we call the other one is called the neutral, yeah. But it's very common, like people doing meditation practice and sitting there, and then they feel the physical body, and when they're itching. Actually, according to the itching is a kind of sensation. What does sensation mean? The feelings. So you're actually experiencing the feelings. But when the people do not have the wisdom, they just feel I itch, so I don't like it. So they start to scratch, right? Hello? You know what I'm saying? And you can just only knowing there's a feelings, or you can just only knowing your mind, you're observing it, or you can know that. So there is a concept of itching, okay? Right, whatever. But those are the core belong to the mind. Now, when that 18 elements meditations become a kind of like fluent to you, so you could observe all the time that what your eyes see and what your ear hear, what your nose smell, I mean as an object. And then later on, what your body feel, right? That's very easy. Is it difficult? Not difficult. You observe it. And after when you observe that, you might be able to observe that is the ear. Say that. Say. And now, what I want to say, you start to observe a lot of feelings comes to you, right? And then when you know that lots of feelings comes to you, you also know a lot what kind of mind is there. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't like it. There's a certain kind of quality of the mind. According to the Saravasti Vada, actually this is very similar to Theravada. So that means that then you know there what kind of this mind concomitant, mind association are there or not there, right? You might be I have pay attention, I don't pay attention, my attention is stronger, my attention is not stronger, and so on. Even though you might not necessarily know all these how many Dhamma at once, you have the mind association, but at least you know something, right? And then you get tired of it. When here they use the term get tired. It's not. It's like you started to feel like you're so good at it, and then you start to feel that's too much for you. And then you narrow it down, and then you're just only observing the matter, only the I object, the mind object. You know what I mean? That's what we call 12 true, mean the 12 ayatana, right? Remember? The 12 bases. And then you just only observe the 12 bases. So after when you observe the 12 bases, and that means the mind had the object, and then you know the I seating, that's it, you know. So only when you can observe these 12 bases and you narrow down to the 5 aggregates. Remember, that's what we call, according to Saraswati, when the practice the insight meditation, before you go to the what we call this, the Four Noble Truths, so you have to use Qi Chu Sang Guan, remember. That means you have to use, there's 3 places to meditate, right? 3 places to meditate. That's what we call the 18 elements, the 12 bases, and then the 5 aggregates. But sometimes you could understand it as only 6 bases, 6 elements also. Okay. So from the 5 aggregate, of course, then you start to also narrow down, and then you start to understand the so-called material have the 4 primary material, right? That's what we learn also. They have the earth element, fire element, and wind element, and so on and so forth. And then the observing of that, then whenever you observe any material, they have these 4 characteristics of the elements, the 4 elements, and then you understand there's what is it? Something that you know there's a feelings there, right? The feelings come through. What kind of feeling? It could be at first many kind of feelings, itching, pain, and how to say, brushing, and even hot, cold, and all these sort of. There are so many different types of feelings. But then later on, when you meditate good, you only have 3 types of, narrow down only 3 types of feelings. That will be that joy, and then agreeable, disagreeable, and then the neutral feelings. When you meditate up to that neutral feelings, and then you still keep on picking up all your momentum, and then you understand that certainly there's a kind of perception on what it is, right? Then you only can see the perception. From to seeing the perception, you start to see what is going on all the time. So that's what we call the samskara. So that means my consciousness have this kind of thought at this moment, but next moment I have some other thought. I would say not only thought, it's just I have a different kind of, not only just perception, not only just the thought, but I also have a certain kind of quality in my mind, right? That's according to Abhidharma system. And then there's something that you're aware this, aware that. But this kind of awareness, some people, especially the Hindu tradition, will take it as I, but in Buddhism don't take it as I. The reason why they don't take it as I, because awareness every time is different, okay? Anyway, then you see this thing, the 5 aggregates after this, and then you started to, according to the tradition, you started to have to raise the idea, nothing is, because you can raise the idea, nothing is permanent, right? So that you would not let your mind hook up with things that you thought, very subtle kind of mind thinking is permanent. Then when you have these 3 kind of, the perception arised, well, actually it's a thought. Usually we say sanya, the word means the perception. Remember the 5 aggregates, one of the perception, you need to let it arise. So you arise the perception of impermanence. And this is what we have learned before. And then when there arise that kind of perception, you start to understand there's impermanence, that's why it's suffering. Otherwise you just think, this is pain, this is itching, this is agreeable, not agreeable. No, you have to be able to even arise much more. Look, this is pain, but then it becomes not pain, then it becomes pain, then it becomes not pain, then it becomes pain, then it becomes not pain. Then it becomes neutral, then it becomes this and that. But then even people, if they have a kind of attachment there, so they don't even see the impermanent. They just only know pain, not pain, and neutral, right? I just give them one small example. But no, you have to see everything started to be changing. Your perception changed, what you're feeling changed, the material even changed. Some people, they observe, now it's hot, like a fire element, now it's hot, like an earth element, then it becomes soft, then it becomes hard, it changes all the time. So, and then this is how you start to understand it's impermanent, okay? Now I need to say this, actually I just read a passage, somebody written in the Tibetan Buddhism also said very clearly, if people do not able to do this way, to see this is impermanent. There's no way to talk about that you have the true leasing. There's very much talking about in Tibetan tradition. In other words, we're talking the same thing. There's no difference. So, but there's a slight difference afterward, not here. So, and that's why you still all have to meditate and observe, and then you see there's an impermanence in order to understand there's a suffering. Okay, and then according to Sarvastivada, but that's the Theravada, very similarity. But now there might be. I need to put some more. We are teaching Sarvastivada, so I want to say Sarvastivada, and then there's some other material you need to do, because you cannot just only aware that impermanence, but you also have to aware the suffering of the suffering, which is actually common to the animal. Okay. You know the animal, they don't like suffering thing. You slap the animal will run away, right? You slap the person will run away. And then the person will remember that pain thing. They will not come back to the place that let you to slap them, right? The animal is the same thing. So, but we are human, the difference actually, huge difference between a human and an animal is not because of understanding the pain as a pain only. Okay, there's a lot of people misunderstood the Buddhism thinking about the pain only, the suffering term as a pain. Yes, suffering can come, we understand the suffering due to the pain, feeling, sensation. Okay, that is only just one of them. And that's common to animal even. But the human, as a human to talk about practice, you have to be transformed that to be able to see that the suffering comes even due to attachment of the happy thing. Right? You eat a nice thing, you like it. You sit in a nice chair, you like it. Those also. Otherwise, that's, you're no much different from if you say, that's why people in the past we have an argument about. You think that human can practice, but the animal also can practice. Because the animal know if you give them the bad food, they don't eat. So animal knows suffering. And the human also know you give them the bad food or something they don't like, they don't eat it. They also realize the suffering. But why the animal cannot attain enlightenment? Now, this explains that according to Sarvastivada, because you cannot just only because you understand the suffering, the truth, so before come to the truth, the concept of suffering, just because of painful. But it has to be seen that even in the delight form, when you like something, that also change. Okay?
Can you enjoy it also but not crave or attach?
No, I'm here not the way you can you or no. I'm talking about how the
but
practice
I'm just saying
system.
though, our practice is so we not misled. Like I can enjoy something, but I enjoy that and that's it, finished. I don't need to say I want more or I want that tomorrow or just keep going to attachments.
No, maybe put it this way. I mean, this is another question, okay? I'm not here to answer you, and I think that when I answer that question is the wrong way to answer you too. I think that question is asking is, according to my understanding, is not the question, shouldn't be the question. Because we have to understand, basically means even something that when you feel delight, okay? When you feel delight, actually that, when you have a good sensation itself, according to the Buddhism, is that if somebody must have the wisdom, they have to be able to see when you delight something, they still have the attachment there, right? But how can you see there's attachment there? There's no way. There's the only way you can see that there's attachment is because you have to recognize that something when you delight, it also has the nature of something. What kind of nature? So that is the nature of something will be ceasing. Because whatever happy joy feelings there will bound to be ceased. Right. That's how the Buddhism can recommend. You need to have this kind of mind to see whether it's true or not, and then it become from the delight feeling you are able to see the ceasing, and then when you have a neutral feelings, let's say you don't necessarily have a delight in anything, but you can just have a neutral feeling, which is very advanced actually, much advanced than the previous two, because people easily to feel the suffering. Because of pain reason, but it's even comparatively a little easier to feel the suffering because you delight something. But when you have a neutral feeling, it's really hard. Okay, so and then that's why even due to the neutral feelings, so you're able to see due to neutral feelings that things are conditionally. Okay, are conditionally. Okay, even the neutral feelings is conditionally, whatever. So because of that, then through this thing, and you understand there's no nature, this is how you start to know the noble truth of the suffering. Okay? Okay. So, and this kind of understanding of noble truth of suffering, only when you are, this is just a beginning actually, it's not a whole. Oh, now I know the truth of suffering, now I'm Arahant now. No. You are still far away, according to Sarvastivada especially, okay? So, and then you started to understand the truth of this, so the cease of the cause of the suffering, right? And then that's why we have this remember the 16 akara. So first, actually, you must know how this come along, right? And what conditions are given. And that's why we say the cause, and you have to know how it arises, right? And what is, and then that's the only way they arise, no other way arise. So there's 4 ways. When you're very clear about this, and then you could cease, okay? You will see the cease. And then once you see the cease, but there's 4 ways also. I'm not going to explain them. I'm going to talk in the last class, in the next class. Let me just sum up a little bit. When you see the cease, and then you will see, you know the path, okay? When you know the path, now, according to Sarvastivada, it's not there. You haven't attained anything yet. You know the Four Noble Truths, but you are not strong enough to cut off the defilements, okay? Because that's the reason why Sarvastivada talk about defilements into 9 levels of defilements. Just like I have a craving, anger, okay? In my past, my anger attached to me. When I see an object I don't like, I get angry. But in my past, the degree is 9 degrees. It means I get very furious, right? And it disturbed me my 1 year or half year or 5 days or 1 week. But when my meditation been doing all these things through the Four Noble Truths, that's according to Buddhism, there's no any other way. That's only Four Noble Truths. So because you at least understand suffering, it helps you to 9 degrees become 8 degrees. It become maybe 7 degrees. So when it become only 7 degrees, some people they're like that. The angry just only attached to them 7 degrees. So when they see the same thing again, they find, oh, I changed a little bit. My anger become attached to me. The sticky, become only 7 degrees. So it much easier to take it off. Okay. So, but the thing is then you need to still, because in order to, even though you do loving kindness meditation, maybe help you to diminish like anger from 9 degrees to 7 degrees or maybe to 4 degrees, but still, you are easy to be attached. And then with the 6 degrees, okay. So the only thing that you can really cut off, and for the first time you see that complete cut off, even though that's why according to Buddhist practice say when you practice force of non-abiding, like the force of non-abiding meditation, you could feel almost like that. That's why he used the word almost. He didn't say it's a sad. He just make you feel that almost. But according to this, the insight is that that time, only when you are at the time, you have to practice in order to make it really cut it off. So you have to go through before we talk about that also, that you have to go through this Randinensadifa. So the Four Noble Truths practice precisely how to go to a medical system again, running, okay? So that's why this is called in the Jiaxing Dao, this is called the equipment, the practice, the application practice. For the Four Noble Truths, you have to precisely, it's a very complicated system, which we didn't talk here, but we know there's something here, and then you need to go through all this precise system. But it's almost like it's 400% sure if you can follow it, you have no problem, It's just a way. And this is my I add a little information. This is my opinion. And then otherwise you are still running around. But there is no, if you can follow that, you almost like this formula there, and then
That's what we're gonna study.
So now I'm talking the 31st lecture, and then do you want the end of the class? And it basically means, and then that's when the person, at the time, the last moment when he can, the 16 steps when they go, at the end, remember we talk about understanding of the Four Noble Truths with Kufa and Kufa Zhiren. It means like he attend the understanding of suffering, and he can retain the suffering, and subsequent the retaining become a force, and so on. There's a kind of and only when they go to the 16, and then he become the stream enter. At that time, during the 14 moments at a time, he can completely cut it off. Okay. Why? Because at that time, the glue basically means like a 90 degree. It could be reduced to 7 or 8, but actually it's complete 90 degree can be cut it off. By that time, when you cut it off, that's what we mentioned, and then the 32 types of the defilement will be cut off that time. Right?
So when
So-
you're dying, or
No, stream enter.
but when people are dying,
It has nothing to do with dying. Come on. I don't know why it's something you think about.
Possibility happening at death. There's like
I don't mean it. I don't mean it.
small chance it could
I-
happen during death.
I didn't mean the chop of your head, okay?
I was thinking about like,
Metaphorically speaking,
well, you remember that.
you all self dies and you become Siddhartha.
It's not the last one.
Last one before after the stream.
Metaphorically speaking.
That's breath.
Well, anyway, so I mean, this is what when we say that we are deliberately and cutting off these defilements through the Four Noble Truths that time, it's all practicing cessation of deliberation. Get it now?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So each moment we have to
But to remember that the practicing of the deliberation, because when the moment you realize suffering, remember that. Do you think that? Think about that. Let's say I want to get a job. I want to get something, but I don't get it. You feel what? You feel suffer. That suffer comes from pain because you want to get something, you don't get it, right? But actually that moment, the only problem is when the people have the wrong view, they don't like it. They actually, if they can recognize this, the moment I don't get it, so the suffer is there. If I can only observe the suffering, the deliberation, the cessation of deliberation is there. Because at that moment, I'm talking that moment, actually that moment, nothing arises, no greedy, nothing. But the next moment, usually people is, what happened the next moment is that even though they get the suffering from the painful sensation because they don't get it, right? The next moment is that you feel proud. How can I not be? So that's why what is attached to you, something there, have the chance that they hook up with you. And that hook up with you is that's what the craving, right? And the craving give you the chance of the pride. So that's why you were fighting that I don't want it, but actually you want it. You know what I'm saying? The pride. And I don't care, actually you care, you know? Yeah. So that's why I'm saying this, all this attachment is there already. Now I'm not talking about that side, I'm talking about really practices. That's why that actually called the deliberation, the cessation of deliberation.
So can you call that vipassana to see things as they are?
No, vipassana is just a term, the method to say something, right? But I'm talking about this kind of phenomenon. It's called, because you were asking, we are still back to this topic. The topic why it's called deliberation of the cessation of deliberation. That is it, because you are in a Four Noble Truths. But the problem is you maybe have just one moment, and next moment you go. Just like people, they might have one moment, oh, loving kindness, the next moment is hate, right? The same thing. So that's why the difference is that this is the reason now give you an idea why the Saravati want to say the Four Noble Truths have to be all the time. like your loving kindness, stay 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you will be marvelous different person. But imagine if the people, like a Buddha, is always only in Four Noble Truths, there is kind of that, you know. So that's why it's different. Okay, get it now? So you at least some idea what the Saravati try to say why this is called. Understand this as the unconditioned Dhamma, but this unconditioned Dhamma is deliberately. Okay, get it now? Okay, we are going to sum up the whole thing, maybe a little more complicated, but the whole thing, the system they're going trying to say, at least we are not going to talk about the four wholesome. How they practice, because it's very complicated. They have many systems. If you belong to greedy person, you have to practice this way. If you belong to the anger person, you have to practice this way. If you belong to the ignorant person, you have to practice that way. And sometimes you can mix it in this way. They have so many very complicated systems there. But I just want to say that's how the general idea, what they try to put off. Okay. And the last class, after the last class, I would like you to go back and think what we should learn next time. Okay, and you please you can put your suggestion. Okay, and we can have a discussion also after the next class will be November. The September 17. Okay, we will have a wrap up the whole thing again, and discuss. Okay, we just do the transfer marriage. Yeah.
Akhasattha ca bhummattha devanaga mahintika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakantu sasanang cirang rakantu desanang cirang rakantu mang paran. Sadhu. Okay.